temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the Lord forever.
All right, citizens' comments. Susan Moreland. Yeah, we hope you're ready because you're going.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm Susan. I live in the house on the corner of 4th and 8th. It has been at least as long as I've lived in this house, a 16-year fight to keep Phelps from butchering the big oak tree that stands on the corner, which is probably over 100 years old. The other day when McCoy was across the street and took the head shears to the big pecan tree and just up the side of it, I called the McCoy people over and I said, do not do that to my tree. The little guy come over, stood in my driveway with me, said, oh no ma'am, your tree's been trimmed before, you don't need to take that much off, it's only 2.5, 6 inches from each side, that we need to stay off the wires, you're good, that we won't take much. A couple days later I come home and it's like, what have you done to my tree? 2 years ago, the frontier man was installing something at my neighbor's house, and since it was right there at my driveway again, we stood there and we talked about the communication lines, and I showed him where my trees were getting the communication lines. He says, don't worry about it, it's the electric people that are always fussy about the tree, you're okay. Now I get a phone call that they want to cut the limbs off the communication lines, which are big, major limbs that are close to the trunk of the tree. And when these trees around town were trimmed, I watched for 20 years living here what they do to these trees when they trim them. They don't trim them, they butcher them. They're going to kill these historic trees. Trees were probably there before the electric lines were, okay? If they knew how to trim, and trim on a regular basis, instead of butchering these trees, it probably wouldn't be a problem to the people in town. Pat Brown was going to be here. She's fussy about her trees too. Ronnie Pena couldn't be here today, but he's fussy about his tree too. There's a lot of us downtown here that are fussy about our trees. And it's like, again, if they were done right, or they were done on a more regular basis to where they did not need to be hacked on, it probably would not be a problem. But when we come home and half of our tree is missing, it's like, why? And why is it we don't have any say-so? There's no appointment made, there's no consultation made as to how they're going to do it. Nothing. We just come home to this surprise, and there ain't a damn thing we can do about it. So I think that either the homeowner needs to be consulted more, be present at these appointments, or that they need to be trimmed on a regular basis. Because the way they're cutting some of these trees, I'll be surprised if they survive. So, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Christy Asheville.
Honestly, I'm just going to second that.
Okay.
She said it to the T. I mean, there's nothing more to be said than
All right.
I couldn't say it better.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lincoln.
All right. Recognition of employees: Kenneth Brzumbek, David Travioso, and Sergio Vela.
I think he's still on his way. He's still on his way. It's a long trip. Kenneth, I don't know about his title being meter reader foreman. He's also really the foreman over the AMI installation, you know, the crew and everything else. So he's part of the, you know, what little bit of over the T&D meter reading, because we don't do much meter reading ourselves anymore. So Kenneth has been with the utility for 27 years, and you know, he's been through a couple of different departments. He started like a lot of them with brush crew, and then moved to different departments, like I said, and then now he's, you know, mainly doing the AMI meter installation in the foreman and making sure the T&D people are, you know, where they are and getting the work lined out for them. So Kenneth, like I said, 27 years of service, if I'm not mistaken on that. So like I said, appreciate what Kenneth does for the utility. He does a good job, and actually he can install some meters and everything for you that he can't go out there and do it, because he can change them out pretty efficiently. David is the utility arborist. It's funny that he was.
Make the good thing.
So just to make sure y'all understand, this is a computer random draw of when people show up here to these meetings, and it's kind of like, I saw that last week. I said, oh, that's a funny coincidence that this has all happened to me. David's here on this time. So David's been here 22 years, and he runs the right-of-way crew and stuff for the utility, and he's, like I said, he's been here for 22 years. So appreciate what David does. His crew has gone from, I guess what you have back in the day, a couple of crews that y'all ran at this utility, and now you're down to one crew, 3 to 4 people. So we're running 3 right now on David's crew, 2 plus him. So David, like I said, has been here. He also does his crew does all of the community service work of hanging all the banners and taking all of those down all through all the communities and everything else. So they're pulled off of the work that we need sometimes on the right-of-way stuff to do the community service work also of the banners. And then Sergio is not here, but he is a new hire. He's been here for 3 months. He is an apprentice lineman. He's originally from Washington State, if I'm not mistaken, and he has family that lives down in the Valley area, so he has family here. He just wanted to come here in this area to work. He went to lineman's school, so he came out of school knowing how to climb and knowing some of the basics, but he still has to go through the 4-year program like you do to become the journeyman lineman. So he is signed up for that, and this must be.
I got a gun.
Good morning, Sergio. Good morning.
Hi.
Sergio, I was just talking about you, Sergio, so I'm glad you're here. Huh?
It was October 25th.
Almost today, so hang on before you run back over there. So this is Sergio, who I just explained to you, being here about 3 months as apprentice lineman. Like I said, you're originally from Washington State, correct?
Yes, sir.
And family down in the Valley area?
No,
of
they're
Texas?
in Washington.
Oh, I thought you said,
I
someone
had
said
some
you had
family
some.
down in the
Okay.
Valley, yeah.
So he is one of the 2 new apprentices. Both of them were hired. I guess y'all started about the same day, I believe.
Yeah, 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is Sergio. So just wanted y'all to meet him and everything else, so you can have a seat and see what goes on during their meetings. Thanks, Sergio. He thought he was with your next month on the
All right, thank you so much. All right, view and action on the minutes of the meeting held August 28th, 2019.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Mayor makes a motion, I have a second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Akins seconds, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Review of the financial statements for August 2019.
Good morning. August looks like most of the other months, so we had a customer count increase of 1.6%. We're at 16,127 customers at the end of August. Our kilowatt purchases have finally turned the corner. We're at 43.6 million, or 1% lower than we were at this time last year. Our sales are still 6% lower at 36.4 million. We're buying a month ahead, so next month that'll get closer. Our revenue billed for the month is 3.8 million. That's still 11% decrease from this time during 2018. Our other income is at 1.3 million, which is 10% lower than this time last year. And the total net revenue is also 10 million year to date. Operating expenses, we're still operating under the budget number at 16.7%. Same thing for the construction program, 3.76 million is how much we've spent, or 36% under budget. Most of that is because of the SS30 circuit, so that should come in line closer to the end of the year. Net income for the month was 671,000.
Any questions for Marcy? Review and action on the bad debt charge-offs for the month of August 2019.
All right, so charge-off for the month was, as you notice on either the first page or second page you're looking at, it's 2,700 and 2,755 and then 67 cents. So if you do notice, there is one large write-off. the definition of what that is. So there is one large write-off of
Train coming through.
of over $1,000 on just one. There was a final bill returned, phone number incorrect, so, you know, it was one of those that disconnected on the final bill, and then it was a returned, bills returned, just the bills were returned to us.
It was a medium commercial customer, so the bills are larger for them.
I was gonna say, was that a business?
Yes.
That was, where was that at? Laverne?
Yes, 19's Lavernia.
What?
Any questions?
So if you, yeah, the definition, the write-off on the, over the 500 is on that third page or whatever is what it is saying. 2 months of usage is why it was so large, and the bills come back as undeliverable. So if you look at it, the 2755.67, then we recovered 1481.83. So the net loss period of the write-off that we look at, just total for the month, is 1273.84. So the year-to-date, we're still rolling, you know, really, I think is pretty good for a utility of where we are on the total of what was actually written off, plus what we recovered. We're still looking at 6,400 as a total, which is, you know, a decent number for a utility company. So I think we're in good shape on that aspect.
Okay.
You would like it to be lower, but.
Well, it wouldn't be, but that 1,000 actually be very low.
Yeah.
So, especially in the middle of summer, so. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve as presented.
Ms. Castillo makes a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
The mayor seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. With the board's permission, I'd like to move the discussion on current tree trimming process up to the top real quick, or jump to.
Where's this?
It's gonna be
You
number.
move 9 up in front of 8.
If I can move 9, actually, right now,
Okay.
and if we can jump on that while we got people here and go on with their lives.
I had asked to have this put on the agenda because as of last Monday morning, I was welcomed first thing in the morning by phone calls complaining about the trees. I was somewhat aware of some, but not aware of some others. So by the time the week was over, I had a total of 13 calls or visits to my house concerning the trees. So I actually did some checking, and if you go down A Street, this, A was my big issue. So if you go down A Street, and I told Bruce and Mr. Lowe that they didn't look this bad when the tornado hit. Now, there's an explanation, I understand, but, and going through the city, going through around my corner, down my street, down 2nd Street, they continue to do the same situation as far as I'm concerned. If it was on my property, and my property is not involved, but if it was on my property, I would be livid, because some of these trees, as you mentioned, are historical. I've been there for so many years, and some of them are left just looking, there's no other word but hideous. So on that note, I will turn that over to the explanation by our staff of why they're doing, why the contractors are doing it the way that they are doing it.
So first of all, I would like to know, what is the process? Do we have a policy in place on how to trim trees?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's
Look
what
at
I
their
would-
own
okay,
bird.
thank you.
So that was designed, it's in my desk over there. The last one that I saw was designed, what, 3 years ago? It was done by engineering firms with arborists of how we should be cutting and which sections and feeders of the rotation, so we can start doing the vegetation management on a proper schedule. And, you know, do it once you finish, and you come back and it's on a rotation the way it should be done. So yes, that has been designed, and those are proper cuts. So David has talked to me, and those are the cuts that we've talked about, and those are the ones that are designed in there. So I don't know what the names are. So you have your L cut, underneath the system of that, you have the V cut, and then you have pure straight line where everything's clean, the vegetation underneath, you can have what.
Directional pruning, which has to go back to the trunk, which
Yeah.
sometimes it is extreme, it seems that way.
Yeah.
To do the proper, but
So you have those three type of cuts that are approved for vegetation management under the guidelines that are set. So the deal is that when we talked, we put, I'm trying to think of who all was in here. You were, Bobby Ray, Marcy, Line Design. We tried to figure out where we needed to go and where we needed to trim because, you know, it hasn't been, it seems like it hasn't been done and it hasn't been done on the manner that it needs to be done properly. So they have trimmed in Floresville before. So people are, you know, when they're saying these trees have never been cut, when you look up, you can tell where they've been cut. They have been cut before. It's been 7 to 10 years in some areas, what it looks like to me at the growth that is back on there. So yes, it's a shock when they are getting cut. Is it Greg Rips? He sent over some questions for the utility for us to answer. So I put together, you'll see it in your booklet of some answers and stuff of why we're doing that. So this is under section 9. So, you know, if you want, I can read this. Some of this stuff was in the paper today, but he left out some really important stuff that I put in here of why it's done. And, you know, his letter was, some of it was, I mean, his article.
Do we have copies from these people that came here today?
Do I? No. So, I mean, this is what was provided. Most of this is in the newspaper today, but there's some things that aren't in there. So, you know, if you want me to read this, I can. I mean, Floresville Electric, you know, Light and Power System, Phelps has a responsibility to the customers. The responsibility is to deliver safe and reliable energy to our customers. That's our responsibility. For Phelps to deliver safe and reliable energy, it requires proper tree trimming and vegetation management. Tree limbs and vegetation can cause widespread outages, hazardous conditions, which is electric shock, and fires. The National Electric Safety Code, NESC, requires, this is the part that was left out of the paper, okay? This is a major part. The National Electric Safety Code requires that vegetation does not interfere with workers maintaining, upgrading, or repairing a line. NESC requires removal of any tree or other vegetation that is a hazard to the power system or that could become a hazard to the system. This is also a tree trimming or vegetation management program that is in place at Phelps. So we are following what we are required to follow by the National Electric Safety Code. We're told we have to do this. It's not a choice. We have to keep this out of the system. So unpruned trees could cause serious injury or fatalities to anyone who climbs on trees too close to electric power lines. Electrical shock and injury to anyone close to a tree that is energized and increases the chance of a fire from arcing electricity. That there again was failed to put in the paper. There are numerous examples of what happens when proper tree trimming and vegetation management does not happen as part of our responsibility to the communities that we serve. Example, California fires this past year. If I'm not mistaken, one of our trustees was there working. You know, the fires and everything else in California. But those were blamed on electrical wires, and the Bastrop fire was blamed on electrical wires. Bastrop fire was, what, 2011, 2012, somewhere in that time? That was blamed on electrical wires. Lack of tree trimming, lack of vegetation management. Same thing in California. California utility filed for bankruptcy because they didn't have the money for all the claims and everything else that's there. They didn't do what they were supposed to be doing. So if you keep on going of what I was saying, that's where it was going on. So it is best to mitigate the potential of any hazard on our electric system. That's what we're trying to do. Phelps is attempting to enhance public safety awareness to minimize trees and wire issues to reduce the fire risk. Phelps is currently using 2 vegetation contractors who have arborists on staff. Phelps also has one working full-time, which would be David. Vegetation contractors following the vegetation management standards, which Phelps adopted, and follows the guidelines set forth in the ANSI A300, which is the proper tree trim. That was what was given to the newspaper. We actually stopped by there, Bruce, Drew, and myself, and we talked and made sure that the newspaper, Greg, had everything or had any other questions. Like I said, he left out some of the most important stuff of why we do it. It wasn't even put in there. I mean, I don't know if that was wasn't a horrible article, but it left out a lot of facts. So, you wonder why we do the communications. Communications is really not 100% our issue, but it is our issue. The communication companies are supposed to be doing that tree trimming and cutting that stuff out. But trees don't bother their service very much. There's not a whole lot to do with it. But what happens is when that tree comes into the communications and it starts weighing down on that, it is starting to pull our system like this, you know, the two poles on the opposite end, where we have issues now where we're going to have to change this out, we're going to have to do this because it's deteriorating our system and moving our system around. So once our poles start going like this span now is tight. This span can break back over here because it is pulled too tight because of our poles doing this, and then our poles can break or do different issues. So yes, communication has a bearing on our system. People say it doesn't, but it does. So, an example was a photo in the paper. That was, I told him to go to A Street and take a photo. I don't know if that was the one on A Street. But this is A Street. I'm sorry for the small stuff. Y'all can pass that around. That's A Street. That is a tree limb that was cleared out now, but the tree limb is still stuck in the wires. That's how big these are. If you go down and look, they're this big and they're stuck in there. It's grown into the communications, which is pulling our system down. So does it need to be done? Yes. Does it look good? It probably doesn't. It looks different. It should have been done a long time ago. So we talked to Bruce and to Drew before any communication people we're going to make them now, before they even connect to us, they have to have a clear right of way before they can put that in. They're not going to go lining that through the trees and messing up our system. We agreed that we would trim, and we're billing the communication people for these services of us cutting out the communication part. So they have said, we gave them an option. Do you want to hire someone and you come behind us and do it, or do you want our guys to do it and we bill you? They all said, you bill us. It's cheaper that way.
This is to who? To the residents or?
No, to the communication companies.
Okay.
You know, we have, David, how many? 4 or 5? There's a bunch of them, different companies in our service area. Yeah, there's quite a few of them. So this is proper trimming. Those trees right there are 75 years old and they've been cut back out of the system. That's proper trimming.
So the big problem we have right now is we got behind the curve on doing the management, and instead of being there in 3 years, we're there 7 to 10 years.
That's what it looks like to me.
And so we can tell the constituents that are here today that there's not much we can do about what's happening now, but we're going to try to keep that from happening in the future.
So I don't want to point out anyone. I mean, I spoke to Christy on the phone, and I told her we'd go out there. I went out there right after that, and actually Bruce and I went out there. So, you know, all of your trees have been trimmed before, every one of them. So, you know, you can see where that cut was. It's not that they haven't been. So they are now, what was it, 10 to 15 foot growth on those from the last time that they've been cut. So every one of those have been cut before. You can see the cut because you can tell the different color in the bark that's here, and then you have all the fingers coming off of where that cut was on that next one, and now all those are grown into the line. Those have been cut before. It's not that this is something that's brand new and had never happened. It hasn't happened on a regular basis. And that's the
And
problem.
we have a distance that we need to be back.
Yeah, so our right of way on most of it is what, 15? But we're only going to 10 on this clearance, giving us 10 foot. Huh?
From the farthest stays.
Yeah.
15 from center.
But then down to communications, we're coming down to a 3 foot down toward communications. We didn't feel like we needed 10 on the communication side. So it was a 10, communication is 3, is how we talk about it and how we change that to that cut instead of it coming as a straight line straight down.
I have a question. The question is, and maybe a question to David, is this the time of the year to trim these trees? And how much damage will it do to the trees that are being cut right now?
As long as the cuts are proper, any time of the year is good. You never want to take that third more of the growth of a mature tree, but there's times that we do have to do some string cuts. We do the proper cut, collar cut, the wound can close quicker other than some of the cuts that some of the customers want. They want a stub cut, which at that time you have a lot of advantageous sprouts that would come out and just shoot up and have some really quick growth back into the lines. That's what we dealt with a few of the areas.
So it shouldn't damage any of the trees that have currently been trimmed?
I haven't seen all of them that have been trimmed, but it should not. Like Mr. Lowe said, it looked odd at first, but the trees are pretty resilient, and depending, I guess you have to look at what the tree has currently, because some of them are failing on their own, and then we just kind of try to do what we can to help prevent any further failure.
The other question I had is, I have seen the contractors go up and down streets and do a yard, and then they'll leave, and then they come back and do another one. What kind of plan do they have? What?
So David, Bobby, Bruce, Drew, myself, I mean, they're going out there. So what happens is sometimes when they're coming this way, they need their vehicle going the other way. So they have to go around because most of them are just pulling, their truck is a one-truck tandem, I believe, right? So they have a bucket with the dumpster attached to it, and then their chipper is attached to it. So when they need to run and come back another direction, they have to go all the way around and then come back in to come get it. So the other day we were out and they were on A Street going that direction. Then they had to go around and flip, so they came all the way back around while we were there because they were facing the wrong direction to get into where they needed to. So you will see them going back and forth sometimes of flipping, of how they have to get their equipment in there because they're not like, David will normally run a bucket itself, then you have another truck that has the chipper and the dumpster with that. So, you know, his bucket is a separate unit and the other one's sitting there, so he can rearrange maybe a little bit easier than what they can because they're pulling the chipper and stuff, so they flip sometimes.
Some of those bypasses are because of some of the complaints. We would rather our contractor continue to go while we'll go address some of the issues, try to get to speak with the customer. And sometimes we initially have to do the work ourselves.
Well, one of the comments that I had is that, you know, they got the notice and they didn't think too much of it because Phelps has trimmed trees before and never had an issue with that. But they come home from work and they almost have a heart attack because of the way some of them are trimmed. So I don't know exactly what the answer is, but the angry comment or angry phone calls, emails, and texts that I get, I'm referring over to Phelps because that is what the situation is.
So I've had one, that was Christie. How many of you had?
It was 2 or 3.
Yeah. So you're getting all the calls.
Yeah, and I have documentation.
So Mortland, is that correct? So on your part about doing it on a timely basis, it's what we're trying to do. So my thing is, it's like you said, some of those have been cut, like Christy, your area, those have been cut. If that would have been cut on a timely rotation of a 4-year thing, you wouldn't have had a 15-foot growth. I mean, you would have been, like the photo that I showed you of Victoria, the way those are cut, when they first did that, that was a shock. That has been like for now 15 years, and it's like nothing to it. It's just a natural look of the way that is, but that But you letting it go for 10 years and you do it, it's a shock when you look at it. I get that. And that's what when I went to your, talk to you and explain to you, I understand that. My thing is, if we can get a good rotation, you should understand that's how that cut needs to be, and it's not a regrowth of a tree back into the lines and everything.
Well, and I'm going from the resident's standpoint. If I came home and I saw the trees done the way that they were done, I would be screaming and hollering, because those are our pride and joy. You cut down or cut into a 40-year-old pecan tree, that's an issue.
There is something that we're going to put on our website telling you about how close you should plant a certain type of tree to the easements and the utility line, because a lot of these trees shouldn't be planted where they're planted.
Okay, but what about some of these 100-year-old trees? They were there before the power lines,
I don't know what we can do to satisfy y'all other than I think you can get our people that are doing the work, and they're gonna tell you, I'm not going to anybody's house or on anybody's property to try to kill their tree. Okay? I'm coming there to provide a service so that the electrical system is dependable. I've got 2 trees on my place, I'm just like you. It would kill me to have them cut the top out of it. They're growing in their own place. But if one of them happens to be in a place to where a line's gotta be, we don't want to do this. It's an expense that we have that we really don't wanna do on anybody's property. But we're trying to be good neighbors. We're trying to take care of what you have, and we're trying to provide
Well, it
electricity to
sounds like
everybody.
from what he said that this is national code and this is the way it has to be done and yada, 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 that whether we like it or not, that's what you're gonna do.
Well, tell me what we can do other than that. Explain that to me.
You can be a little bit more conscientious about how these trees are cut. And it's not as homeowners and trying to water these trees in the middle of the night to save them it's not our fault that you haven't come around and trimmed
Ask
them
that man
back
back there,
7 years.
do you ever intend to go on somebody's property and damage their tree so that it doesn't survive? Is that your intent?
No, sir.
Hey, you guys
That's our
do a
answer.
good job of trimming. You used to. You go in there when you needed to, and you do the right proper trimming. To hell with those other lines down there. They weren't in anybody's way. But now, you may have a hole in my tree, fly an airplane through.
And I
That's a
agree
bunch
with
of
that.
stupidity.
It's something that
I'm
should
not
have
an
been
electrician.
maintained.
I'm a natural gas and petroleum engineer. I've built pipelines, managed plants, met compressor stations, but I'm not an electrician. I did take a couple of courses in AC, DC circuits. I know there's a danger, but what you guys have done is stupid. Period.
Mr. Lowe, are the residents given any type of notice at the?
So that is,
This here.
So it's been put, Marcy, in
It was in
where
the
the current, and do you have it posted on the website that we were in certain areas, or what were, anything? It was just in the current?
door hangers
before
they go.
The current that comes out, it was in there, and then they put out the door hangers.
I can respect everybody's feelings about their yard. I've seen all of their yards, beautiful yards. So do they have the option of looking for a contractor that could, it has to be done by our services?
Yeah, you do not allow other people up in, so like if they have a limb.
No, for just trimming the trees.
Yeah, so if they have a limb that's up in the electrical side, and the contractor is not supposed to cut that. They are supposed to contact us to get that down below that area. So if there's even a tree within 10 foot of it that they're wanting to remove, we're supposed to be there to help remove part of that to where it's safe, where it doesn't take the electrical system down, and then electrocuting one, and then their guy, whoever they hired, removes it the rest of the way.
I guess they would have a right to keep it off of that 10-foot perimeter with using their own people. But once it gets within that 10-foot line, it becomes our responsibility.
That is correct.
And this note to self, we need to take care of the trees in the city limits before we worry about going and trimming a line out in the country. Because We need to keep these things trimmed back to where we don't have this massive cutoff.
Correct. The problem is the issues we have are from the past. As long as we can work forward and get a system, what I'm hearing that we're trying to do here, there's nothing else we can do about it.
So let's make this 100% so we get a truth. So I was told yesterday, Bruce, was that your call or whose call was it? They said what a good job and how well some of the stuff looked at where they were working in Bentwood in that area.
That was true.
So, you know, he had a call from a customer stating just the opposite. You know, they appreciate the way it was done and the way it was cut and everything else. So it's not always all the negative. There are people that do say that they appreciate the way it was done and the way it is cut.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have attention?
No, sir, not right now.
Mr. Lowe, does the owner or the resident have a responsibility to call and ask and tell the company how to cut it or how low to cut it? It cannot. They have.
So if they notice something's up in the line, they can call and David would get a service order. How many do you have on your iPad now? 60 or so? Like trees that need to be trimmed that are, you know, where it's into their service or into their wires. Some of them do call and say it's in there, can you come trim this? And David gets those, they're downloaded into his iPad, and I don't know how many's on there. You have quite a few that are on there that you're trying to get to, isn't that right? So David gets those. So like if you had a tree and you noticed the lines are in it, you could call us. And that is dispatched out to David. But like I said, David has, I don't know how many's on there, 30, 60? He has quite a few. He's a couple of months out probably of all of those, getting around to those, you know, because you know, it's just the nature of his crew right now.
So if I have an electrical pole inside the property, not outside, inside can they come and cut the limbs, or do we have to wait for a specific time of year?
Can David, no, David can go, that's what his work orders are most of the time, I believe, correct, David? On an individual customer? So like if it was on yours, you'd be calling, it would be dispatched out, it'd go to dispatch, they would get it and they would download it and dispatch it out to David. So it'd be on his iPad every day, so when it rotates up, he would go out to make that contact with you.
So could I then, since it's on my property, stand there and say cut there, not there?
On that one?
Yes.
If it's a service, you
We
can,
do offer-
the service is a smaller cut.
Right, we do that, and we have pamphlets that we offer to educate the customer, but as well that they don't trust us. We can do temporary disconnects at services so they can hire their own people. And we just remove the hazard of the services so they can do it. Other than that, our services that free to the customer, and we do strive to do the right thing.
Okay, thank you, because some poles are inside the property, not outside.
On all of those, most Drew and them have easements, I guess, on all of the service and everything that's sitting out there where we go. So we have easements on all of that stuff to clear those right of ways. But like I said, on the service, we don't cut as far back. I don't even know what that service, it's smaller.
It's 10, minimum 3 just to edit the service.
Service, yeah. Service, we do a smaller cut on the service wire going over to the meter.
Now clarify that for me. Service is our last pole to the house.
To the transformer of the house, so it's a different wire than what you're seeing.
Yeah, because I think I had them do that at my house.
Yeah.
I've got a big pecan tree and it was hanging on the line.
Yeah.
What percentage have they done in Floresville? How much more do you work to get out to do?
We just started.
Is it essential to spray the cut
It's cosmetic.
with the black, you know, that blade?
So on some
Sealer.
cut, yeah, I don't
It's
think,
cosmetic due to oak wilt, and that hasn't been much. We do spray the oaks as well as some of the pecan trees bigger than a 2-inch cut. There's a big debate on it. It's cosmetic. The tree itself really takes care of its own, but we do spray the oaks as well as some of the.
So if it's sprayed, will it regrow, or is it sealed forever?
No spray, because
Yeah.
as soon as you put the spray on, the tree exudes some of the excrements in it that kind of push stuff out of it, and so it really doesn't, it's just more cosmetic.
Oh, okay.
But there's some older cuts that the wood is dry and you spray it, you can kind of keep some kind of insects from getting into it.
Yeah, I think it's just to seal it like a Band-Aid on a cut, keep germs out.
Because a cosmetic doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I would spray it for a reason,
Right.
not because of
Are
cosmetic.
you good with that?
Yeah. I would ask, so that there's no issues, especially with those board members that are from out of town, if on your way out, you would go up 4th Street to A Street, take a right to 181, and then you can see, A Street seems to be the one that's more consistent.
Pronounced?
Yeah, consistent, so,
Okay. We have any other questions for Mr. Lowe on the tree trimming? Okay.
Oh, well, may I ask something? Can this article be reprinted or ask them to redo it with all of the information?
I don't know why he left it out. I have no idea. They're here now, so.
Can you do that?
I can get a copy of it and put it in my,
Okay. I think that would be.
Put it under corrections next week.
Thank you.
Or we're sorry or something.
Okay.
We missed half the article.
Review and action on the facility design phase. We go back to 7A.
All right, so we're into the next stage on the facility aspect, and that means they have done the due diligence aspect of the property. So the next stage is the design proposal for, this is architectural work for the building and the facility itself. So this is the next stage, so this needs y'all's approval before we move forward.
Hold on one second. Just for the public, you're welcome to stay the rest of the meeting, and I guess you're willing to leave if you gotta go to work or you need to go the rest of the day, so feel free to do what you like.
So the new headquarter facility, the design is the consulting service.
We don't have nothing.
No, y'all don't have it. This came in yesterday. Needs assessment square footage again. So you remember the conceptual plan that we had up there? So what they're gonna do is re-verify that and then talk to us again about the layout and then start designing that layout of the architectural of this building. So it's gonna be really a design now is the next stage. They're gonna start working on that, and then they will consult with us in the meantime while they're doing that design part of it. So that is the next one. So the design will include, existing and proposed, the contours, the paving, sidewalk, the structures, new area required for storm detention and water equality. So if you remember, that back part was in a little bit of a floodplain area. They're going to also, in here, you're going to see there's a little bit more for site due diligence. They're going to find out if the retaining pond is needed back there or anything else on that nature. And if that's the case, they would, study that to see if that needs to be done also, or what can be done back in that floodplain area to verify where that is also in that area. So it goes right through TxDOT and that back part, goes all the way through the next couple of properties and comes out right there at CD Cowboy. Yeah.
We're this side of TxDOT, other side of TxDOT.
This side.
This side.
So the vote today is just simply to go forward with it.
Yes, let them go ahead and start doing the design stuff.
Basically, they found no hiccups in their preliminary study.
That is correct.
Okay.
We should get the soil 100%, and they said the soil's really nothing. All it is, that there would be some with soil, they'd take some off and then re-put into a better soil thing, and that's what they always do anyway, and they're constructing a building on that
Any
aspect.
trees that you have to trim up.
So, there's some mesquite, there's some
There's no
mesquite,
large
yeah,
oaks.
there's some mesquite there, I believe.
Mark, if you're ready for the motion, I'll make the motion. to move forward.
So the deal is that the design part of it is, they're saying is it estimated about 135,000. And this other one is additional site due diligence, and that part is 25,000 for a total of 160. That 25 is for them to study the rest of it for the flooding, any of the other issues back in there, if they need a retention pond and different aspects. So we're in the next stage here, and their estimate is 160,000.
And when do we expect that back?
This drawing stage, we're going to be working with them for the next couple of months on this part. So they'll start designing based off of the drawing that y'all were seeing, was shown up here on the
Is
board.
this just engineering design for the landscaping, I mean, the outside, or also the
Also the
structure?
inside.
The
Yeah, they're
building,
gonna
okay.
start the architectural work on the whole building, but they will still be getting with us to make the tweaks and stuff and make those now. And then before it's all finalized and ready to go, we still have input on any changes and everything. So we have no idea what his idea was for the inside. We just kind of saw their guessing of what it would look like on the outside.
That's our max 160?
Yes,
Okay, let
that's
the
what I'm
motion
saying,
reflect that
proposed
mark.
amount.
Hold on a second, hold on.
I'm ready to go.
I understand. All right, do we have any questions for Mr. Lowe on the facility design phase? Okay.
If I understood you right, you're saying that this guy's coming out with his thoughts on what this thing needs to look at. And then it's gonna come back to y'all, and the groups that are giving us input are gonna say, oh, you got a conference room there, but that won't work there, we need.
So we've already talked about that, and that's where they've come up with the square footage
Okay.
and all of that.
Okay.
So now, when they lay it out, we're gonna notice, you know, we might want that conference room more back toward the line design area, toward engineering, you know, that side, and then have one up toward the front more than, you know, that aspect. We can do that swapping, but they have the square footage now, they're just gonna have to put it into that box
Okay.
of where it's gonna be. And then where is the board, you know?
And they may
where's the
have
board
dispatch
meeting rooms
over
gonna
here,
be?
and it needs to be next to this other group.
We know where dispatch is going, and they,
Okay.
you know, it's gonna be in the middle, and it has to be a hardened area. So it will be in the middle of the building, and it will be a no window hardened area. Just in case there is a storm, we always have control of our system where we can see what's going on, because whatever it is should not take out that area. So we already kind of know
So that would be a
part.
good place to come.
That would be that would be your safe room. So we know where that part would be, and then IT is also in that hardened area, but in a separate room. So we know where those are. Other than that, we don't know where really anything is. They hadn't showed us any of the inside layout. This is the part where they're doing all of that. And like I said, they will be consulting us all during this time span. Like I said, this is when we will be working really hand in hand with them now in this phase. That due diligence on the property, that was theirs. We had nothing to do with it. This one, we will be involved with it 100%.
Thank you.
So basically, you're asking for $160,000 limit to continue.
That is correct.
All right. Eddie,
I'm looking for
you
more.
ready?
Ready.
All right, so are you gonna make a motion to $160,000? Well, you need a word from Marcia.
I have it.
What is Marcia?
Motion with a maximum of 160,000.
I second it.
This is the head makes the motion, Mrs. Castillo seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna excuse myself to go to the communications.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, review and action on a proposal for contractors for SS30 circuit.
You're not retired.
Oh, I didn't tell you up front.
All right,
We don't have anything
thanks.
back yet that needs to be tabled for another meeting. So we might have to call you for y'all a separate meeting. These bids are not in.
Okay. Oh, I understand. If it,
Hey, have a, thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
sir.
day. All right, talk to you later.
okay, so.
Yeah, so they're not in, so we were hoping we would have them in, but they are not in. I got an email today, one's dropping and not even gonna bid, so it's, you know, everyone's too busy. So we thought either it's gonna have to be a special meeting or we can tie it with the budget workshop. Tie it into a board meeting budget workshop whenever we get to that before the next board meeting.
Okay, because y'all need to move on.
Once we get the bids in, or whatever we get, we need to move on it so they can get moving. Whereas the material is, you know, when we get to the projects, I can go and talk about that one now.
We're gonna table number 8.
Do we need to make a motion to table it?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Egan makes a motion to table proposal for contractors for SS30 circuit. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
The mayor seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I would be down to number 10, discussion on current facilities.
And the person that asked for this to be on here just left. So, it was, at the last meeting, y'all wanted for us to kind of just put this on here so we can have a little discussion about the current facilities, what we would do with them on that aspect of moving forward once we had that. So we talked about it a little bit, you know, the out where the line crew is, the warehouse, where Sergio and David are located at this time out there. You know, once this other facility is done, the front part of the building, we can vacate, but that back part is gonna be the poles, so much stuff that we have, we're not gonna be able to vacate all of that. So the possibility that we talked about and bounced around is that we could put that front part being leased to begin with, and then we'd put a fence back there blocking our material, you know, on that aspect to where we could recoup some, you know, potential revenue of leasing that front part until the whole thing can be either leased or sold. That'll be another option of how we look at that once we get that, because all those poles will not be going over. There's some poles that we do not even use anymore. The, 30-foot, all those metal poles that are there, I mean, we have like 90 of them. We don't even use them anymore. So, you know, there's no reason.
Someone wanna buy them?
That's what we have fillers out for people to buy those and stuff. So those would not be moved to that facility, to the new one. We'd leave them here until we can dispose of them. That's why I'm saying we could fence that off, lease the front part, you know, at least recoup some revenue, and then decide then later, once all of our stuff is out, do we sell that whole piece of property, or do we just continue to lease it, and then someone could lease the whole yard on that aspect.
What were those used before?
That was on
John
what?
Deere dealership.
That was a John Deere dealership. And before that, it was John Deere. There was another tractor place there. Was it Ford or some other brand name before John Deere bought it from years ago? There's some. It's always been a tractor shop. In fact, I need to take a break when we finish this.
Okay, I'll wait.
Do we need to take a break?
Go ahead.
No,
I want it to be Johnny.
I don't know, that was
You better hurry.
So that's where we are.
Okay.
I just didn't want you to. I don't care if you go. I just said, do we need to take a break? You know, on that. But my thing is that's where we are on
let's
that
think
building.
out, and I'll stop it after.
So this building would be the same thing, you know, we talked about this one would probably be, someone might have an interest in this one, so this one would be a possibility of a sale, and then if it wanted to be a lease purchase or a lease, that's another negotiation aspect, you know, on there to look at it, but we would say, hey, here it
The only
is.
problem with
you
that
know.
is if there's somebody that leases this upon it, they have to get it all up to
Yeah,
code.
it wouldn't
and
be
everything
ours.
else, and it costs out the
Yeah.
kazoo to get it up to
That,
code.
you're correct, it wouldn't be ours, it had to be a private business where they don't let people in here. You know, the one thing would be
We
what
have
we
to set
said.
it cheap, because it's gonna cost them out to what, you know what, to get it under code, so.
Yeah, so it'd be like us, you could tear it down and then someone use the warehousing stuff back there for something. I mean, it's valuable for somebody, possibly, it's a piece of property right here. that, you know, yeah. So, you know, there again, it would be one that we would look at.
Maybe
and
somebody
have
might
to
wanna
get and
buy it
say-
to tear it down and put something downtown or something,
Yeah.
maybe, but I don't know about saving.
So those are the possibilities of the properties of, you know, that one I do know out there 100% would be, it would have to be a lease of the front part, because we could not clear out that backside in any, you know, reasonable time. Thing is, we can get that front clean, put that fence across there and lease that, and then, you know, do that until we finally clean out that backside. But like I said, all that stuff is not going over. There's some old material and stuff we
On the
don't
new
use.
facility, there is gonna be a, like out here, this facility we have now for the trucks to pull under, you know.
Yes, sir.
A covered park.
Covered, you know,
And-
covered park, place
and-
for covered trucks
And the
underneath.
idea is on that is, all of that is bolted. That way you can always add on to it and do different stuff. The one we have now is welded, which is, you know, if it was bolted, we could take it down and, you know, reuse, but it was a welded one. But that's what we're looking at as a possibility of moving forward when we get to that part of what we do with it. Mr. Tejada wanted us just to discuss, get some ideas of what we'd be doing with it and talk about it. Those are some of the things that we talked about. It's a possibility of us moving forward with those properties. That one would not be for sale to begin with. This one probably could be. You know, but it might flip into where someone wanted to rent it or something like that at first. That would be a talk that we would have to do.
Okay, any other questions on the current facilities? All right, any gonna break or you want to power through?
What?
You want to break, quick break?
Y'all can go on, I'll. take
Okay, that's
over.
fine, okay, well, we'll do that, let's keep powering on. We good? Update on other projects?
Project, so the AMI team, man, they're still moving and doing a really good job these days. So, rolling very well. Efficiencies are going a lot better, getting, we're at 9,400 meters deployed. So, you know, we're getting a little over 1,000, because remember last month it was 82 or so that I talked to you about, 81, so it's 1,000, a little over a month. Those numbers should slow down possibly in the next few months because we're going now into the further apart rural areas. So you might see a little dip in some numbers, and that's the reason, because we've covered a lot of the congested areas as of now, and you know, is where we were. So expect to see a little bit of a drop. It's not working on the efficiency stuff, it's just now there's going to be a little bit more windshield time in between some of the meters that they're looking at. So currently, we did a count, Kyle did a count yesterday, the day before, on the, what we call the house meters, a residential meter. We have about 1,500 on hand. And if you look at that, that is just a little over a month. That's 5 to 6 weeks the way we've been rolling, and Kenneth, you know, Kenneth can knock that out in a month by himself. But, you know, that number is getting close. We are expecting 2,000 meters.
Expectation.
They should be here in about 5 weeks. We had an email last week, which was a 6-week leeway, so we're thinking 5 weeks with another 2,000 coming in. And we're estimating that we need to order about 3,500 meters to finish the project. So that order, Marcy, Ruby, and Kyle, I believe, are making sure that it's a good number, and they're going to get that to Raymond to put that order out. That way we're not going to have to worry about us being out of meters before that comes in, because there is a leeway on some of these, because that purchase will be outside of the contract. So that one might have a little bit more time leeway there before we get it in. The other ones are still in the contract as well. We can kind of get those. All right, so that's all on the AMI project. The SS30, they're out for bids. We don't have anything back. They did come back. Bruce and Drew went out and secured, finally, a way to come out of the substation and kick back over to where that line needs to go, because that individual on the corner never got back with us, so we didn't ever have any route to go. So has to go back now anyway to engineering to redesign that one little part that's coming back in. They're going to redesign a little bit of our current structures, I believe, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. We have another pole line that we're gonna cross, so they have to kind of reroute that one, or they have to back it up a little bit. And where it crosses the road now, they'll just cross the road a little bit before, so our new line can go through there.
So this area is very congested. I mean, we already have double circuits. Some of this area would have been a triple circuit, so it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, we're doing this for better service in case there's something going on in Livonia that is not taking them out. If we put all of those on the same pole, we defeated our purpose. So someone hit that. So we've been trying to work around that on that aspect. That's what's taken so long, and going back to redesign once again, because the only other way to go through it until we got this easement was triple circuit, everything on one pole, and everyone was sitting there, we're defeating our purpose. If we're doing that, let's not do that. So they came up with a way to do that. But like I said, that's still out for bids. Some of the material has been coming in. We're storing that out in that location. A landowner has allowed us to store the poles and some of the big equipment out there, so it's not having to be transported. So when they're being delivered, they're delivered and dropping there. It's not being handled 2 to 3 times before it gets there. So that's where we are on the SS30. Community solar, you know, we did that on that approval of the PPA, but we still have not got the final back. We're waiting on NextEra. So, you know, that is still waiting on the final stages of that PPA. There was supposedly, what, one item the last time we heard about, and like I said, we heard that that was supposed to happen, what, last week or this week?
Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. So that's where we are. It's still moving forward. It's kind of been a slow part of getting that last part of that PPA done. I believe they're doing that is because they're trying to find that next location that they talked about for 2 more megs to get us to that pricing that we looked at. Inventory levels, still moving forward on that. And like we said, we already talked about the vegetation management and the facilities we talked about also. So that's basically all the projects that are currently in the works. The vehicle accountability that we talked about, a bunch of the extra vehicles that we have. So now they have lowered that count down of where the vehicles are. So now it's going to be Marcy, Bruce, Kyle, and Drew will be going out there. And I think they're going to probably grab Bobby Ray and some other people and just talk to verify why is this vehicle here, is it used, what it is, and find out where it is. And then we'll auction off some of these spare vehicles that are just sitting there in the yard, because
We don't have a number yet.
we're estimating about 20 pieces of equipment.
Extra?
Not all vehicles, just equipment that we have. Yeah, so there's some stuff that we have, like the crane. We have decided, it'd be better if we contracted with a crane person instead of us spending all the money to update that, keep that crane going when we don't use it, but every few years. I mean, is that about right? Every few years that crane's probably thrown in there?
Right.
So we have
another one before that, but that one's gone. That
Yeah.
was more efficient.
Yeah, so mechanics said we don't even need that one. They want the contract, so we did a contract with the crane company. We don't pay anything until we use that contractor. We have to call them for it, so it's way better.
Is it for lifting
Big,
transformers
big,
and stuff
heavy
like?
stuff that we don't have the ability to lift, yeah. So there's just equipment that we have that we don't use. It's easier for us to, it's just sitting there, yeah. So those are
Because the
some
day
of them.
you need it is the day it won't crank.
But, yeah. And I think that's what mechanics are kind of saying, that they have to maintain all of that equipment that's just sitting there, even though we don't even use it, because there's some equipment that haven't been used in 3+ years, and they're saying that we have to go maintain, it's not working, we have to do this, the fuel's getting bad, we have to drain fuel, we have to do, all these different things. Well, why do we have it then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at on those. Like I said, I think it's about 20 pieces of equipment. They're not all vehicles, there's just some other type of equipments and stuff of that nature. I think there's some old broken down trailers that are sitting around that, can probably kind of go instead of just sitting there. It's just cleaning up a little bit.
What kind of mileage do vehicles have?
Real high.
Big
Real-
high.
real
So
About 0 to 10
So on
miles
some
an
of
hour.
those vehicles, y'all asked us to make sure that we do give it to the cities first and let them see the vehicle list and see if they have an interest in
Or
those
schools.
before we throw them. Yeah. So that'd be something that we would look at doing before we throw them out on the auction block. Since we serve these communities, we should kind of see if they would be interested in some of those vehicles. Now, some of them do have high miles, but it is, if they need to run something or have in the park or something like that, then it could be a vehicle for that. But for what we do, it's no longer a feasible vehicle for us to have.
Good enough.
Yes, sir.
A review of upcoming agenda items. Any requests?
I would like to put on there, for us to start thinking about as a board, some kind of promotional system, a program to promote ourselves as Phelps, to get out, in the community, some kind of promotional thing, to try to sell Phelps, try to sell ourselves to the community, PR, yeah.
So
Some kind of a program, maybe combine that with the city, with the EMT, with the police department, with the county sheriff's department, something.
So we can
Get
do
out
that,
there,
and we
you
can
know.
bring something back, because on that aspect, we also, because of the employees survey stuff, they wanted to do some more community stuff, so we put a community team together. They haven't had their first meeting, they're about to, so we can bring ideas back and let you know what we're looking at on that committee. So actually, that committee's already been formed, they know who it is, they just need to set up their first meeting. So that will be online with what you're asking.
To get like those 4 entities and something like, everybody needs a hero thing, and then one of the people from Phelps, from the fire department, EMT, sheriff's department, and put a picture, one person from each one of those, and we pick one from ours and put the Phelps on there, and,
So
kind of
maybe
promote ourselves.
So maybe we can get that committee together, and then we can have someone on the committee to
Yeah,
come here and give a report to you of what they're looking at doing.
Super important.
Yeah.
Well, you know, at one point, the four mayors got together, and we haven't done that in a long time, and so we need to do something like that. Well, Stockdale, Floresville, Hoth, and we can get Falls City involved in that, so something.
You know,
Whatever you guys
just
make.
kind of trying to sell
Yeah.
ourselves to the public.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, I'd like to put that on the agenda, then we can come back.
So, like I said, hopefully that committee can meet, and we'll have one of them here to share what they did on the
I think they finalized
committee.
the numbers yesterday,
Yeah.
so now they just have to start planning.
Yeah, that's a great topic, Roger, at the same good timing.
Okay.
Do you have anything else that needs to be on there?
Board work session or meeting.
Yeah. So that
One
would
more
be
time.
Budget.
budget, but that won't be on the, on this next meeting, it'd be a work session before, or
yeah.
in between
No, it
this
needs to be
meeting and
before.
the next board meeting, we're gonna have to have a work session for budget.
Okay, so.
Can we do it in the middle of the day?
Yeah, y'all can schedule that anytime you
Is that,
want.
do we want a full board here, or is that a voluntary, just,
Needs to probably be a full board.
okay.
And
So,
that would probably be the time, if we had those bids in, we would flop over and go into a meeting for a little bit, because you'd have to vote on, that bid stuff or
Yeah,
whatever.
put the budget as a discussion item and the other as an action.
well, I guess until we get those bids in, if we get those bids in 2 days before our next monthly, then there ain't no reason to do it.
That is
but-
correct.
So we're just gonna just wait and see, and then we'll contact the board.
Do you wanna set a tentative date for the week before, for budget? The board meeting's October 30th. Can we set a
Okay, we
tentative
don't
date
wanna
for
do the
23rd?
budget at the board meeting, is our board meeting gonna be long?
Well, no, it gives you more of an opportunity to ask
Oh,
questions.
Okay,
Because it's
I
a
mean, we
work
don't
session.
have to, but it's probably best to.
that's what I would normally do.
Yeah. But that could be
Whatever
any
you want.
time during the day, or however you wanna set it, it doesn't have to be your normal
Was the
8:30.
Wednesday, is the Wednesday 8:30 still, or is that, are you pushing it to get here, or is it 8:30?
No, 8:30's great. 8 o'clock was undoable,
Okay, that's fine.
but 8:30's great.
What about the Wednesday 8:30 before?
The 20, what is it, the third?
I think it's the 23rd.
As a tentative date for work session, budget.
Look good? Let's go with
Okay.
that.
So
Tentative work day, budget on the 23rd, and then regular board meeting the following Wednesday.
October the 23rd.
Yes, sir.
What is your magical device say?
She
Okay.
can't share.
So we're gonna have a work day on the 23rd, and then the 30th is a regular
Board
meeting.
meeting, yes, sir.
The
I
23rd
think
of
I'm out of town
budget,
till the
budget meeting?
22nd, so I'll be here
So that's
on the
perfect.
23rd.
Is that the budget meeting?
Sorry for that.
Yes, sir. And the only other thing that would be a possibility on that one, we would have to post it, would be if we get the SS30, any bids or anything else coming in. These contractors are just so busy, a lot of them saying we don't have resources to do it right now. I mean, GBC's running like 7 contractors and stuff right now, it's just unbelievable.
Okay, any other agenda items, then review the generation transmission factor for the month.
All right, so basically, we're still at that point where this utility tries to hold it at the .069 because of the summer billing and everything, and, you know, looking at next month or so would be any type of adjustment, or the following month, and any adjustments that need to be, you know, made and occurred to either catch us up or, you know, to get back if we're over collected on, you know, some of our charges and stuff of where we are. But you're still looking at .069 is what we recommend staying at for going into this next month.
All right. Review the minutes of the safe work practices staff meeting for the month of August.
All right, so they met on August the 13th. There again, it's the same people, no, it's not the same, they added one, I guess, on here. I'll say it's the same people. So you have Gracie, Bobby Ray, Jody, JC, Patrick, Ozak, and then you have Vanessa, Rudy, Kyle, and then Joel is on it now because Bobby Ray was there as a lineman, but now since he is the operations coordinator, he moved into it on that position, and then that opened up for another journeyman lineman. So they met on, like I said, on August the 13th. So they inspected the buildings again, so if you notice, they just wrote down where stuff needed to be cleaned up, worked, labeled. There's some stuff that wasn't labeled that needed to be on that. So on the next page of your stuff is really the stuff that we talk about more, is the accident/incident review investigation. We had a trip fall, stepped in a hole while exchanging a meter, hurt the knee. And then B, sting while installing the meter. So near misses, reckless driving. Marcia received a customer complaint that a truck was driving erratically across the lane, nearly causing, could be an incident, probably not an accident. But we know who that person was, that person was talked to and everything else, and moving forward on that. So the committee spoke to them about the safe driving procedures. Business office, rear empty, riser on top step split. So it was the back steps down here. The top step has a plyboard that's on that thing, and it was split, and it was a tripping hazard, so that's been repaired on that aspect. That was a issue that I think some people had hit on, so that was stepped on and repaired. In the C&M building, which is, you know, the construction, the warehouse, that area, there was eave up on there. The metal was hanging down, just hanging on one side, only holding it up, so that was repaired to get it back up in the proper area. So there again, just risk assessments of the buildings that they would look at, and what was found and what needed to be repaired and stuff is what they were looking at. So those were the safety things that we've talked about this last month. So if you look at it in your book, you see the photos and everything else that are sitting there on some of the stuff that we talked about.
Any questions on that?
When I first read it, I thought Marcy was the register.
Yeah, that's one of our large trucks.
Outages for the month.
Outages for the month. So normally we talk about large outages, but I will have to say this month, there's, you got to remember, there hasn't been any rain, so we haven't had inclement weather. So we were pretty good on some things on most of the outages. So the largest outage period affecting customers was 47, and then the next one was 29, and then there was 3 or 4 other ones that affected one customer. So, you know, like I said, very few outages that, when Bruce went through the report and everything, that's what he pulled out. And like I said, they were not much in there. You know, I'm not for certain if we're trying to make sure that Bruce is, when he sees these as the fuse, that we do a little research and find out kind of why that fuse did that. It should be an animal, it should be a tree, something should be causing it. If they can find it, we're trying to list them now, what's causing, you know, what it is. So
That's the preferred action is just one customer. I mean, if the fuse is at the customer, you prefer just, if the fuse blows, it would just take out the one customer. In the past, we still had some problems with that one animal at the end of the line ended up tripping the whole line. So we want to happen more, though it's just one customer out.
Instead of all of Livonia like it used to. It used to be.
Lavonia's much better.
All right, appreciation letter.
appreciation letter. So these are from customers. So Mrs. Jimenez called to, this individual called to disconnect because of medical reasons. They wanted to put this in an email. They were leaving our service area. Wanted let us know that all the staff, that she will miss everyone in her office, and everyone was so nice whenever she would call or stop by the office. She said that we have the best service, and will tell people out in the public that our customer service is excellent. So Pamela called for a disconnect, update, forward. I'm not really sure what this says for. I'll read it all 100%. Is this the same one?
Maybe.
Who's it, Nancy?
didn't see the name of this person.
No, I don't think Mrs. Menace's first name was Pamela.
I feel my pocket full.
So this is the same, this is not the same one, but it's for a disconnect updating account
That's
with
not the
forwarding
most outrageous
address,
thing I've seen.
and everything else that's on there. She asked for service days, and part of them
Where
they
have you
are.
been this morning?
She said that she's been a Phelps customer 28 years, and she would just like to say that she said that we had some outages, but nothing major. And when they did occur, Phelps took care of them right away. She also thanked her for, this was for Pamela. No, it was Melissa that said this. The lady called is Pamela. Thanked her for all the assistance and hoped that when she moved out of state to her new provider will be just as good and as kind.
It's a similar letter over the houses.
So, this is Connolly Memorial, saying thank you for the contribution that was made, a cash donation in the amount of $500.
What do they need money for? They get money for me.
That's their, that is their, what's it called, their fundraiser?
Consolata.
Huh?
Is it the Consolata?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of
It's
their,
the foundation that helps support them.
Reminder of October budget work session, I guess we went over that already.
Yeah, I jumped the gun, sorry.
oh.
I jumped the gun.
Jumped the gun.
No, that's fine. Any other questions or anything? Meeting adjourned.